Hi, and welcome to the Margaret E. Heggan Public Library. I'm Miss Jennifer, and today, for Book Bites, we'll be celebrating Black Boy Joy, edited by Kwame Mbalia. It's 17 stories celebrating Black boyhood. I have to say, this book just exudes joy. No matter who you are, you will be filled with it when you read this book. What's great about it is a collection of stories from many different authors, including the first one with a little bit of fantasy by Kwame Mbalia himself, called The Grot of Grover Street. Part 1. Homecoming. That's what Fort's mother and Aunt Jess and Mimi called it. Homecoming. Sounded fun, actually, like returning to your own bedroom after sleeping over your cousin's house for a week. Or a party at 3 p.m. every day when school let out to celebrate being done with classes. That would have been cool, but homecoming meant something different. It meant a funeral. The church marquee read, Anita Robinson's Homecoming, Friday, 5:30 p.m., and it was wrong. Nobody knew Anita Robinson. They called her Aunt Nita. She had the warmest hugs, the biggest smiles, and the sweetest apple turnovers Fort Jones had ever tasted, which she dusted with sugar and served as their church services at the repast. Fort would miss the turnovers, not because they were delicious, they were, or because she made one special for him that he couldn't sit still during the sermon and got sent to the kitchen to help. She always had one set aside. But because he sat there kicking his feet and eating the hot, sticky dessert, Aunt Anita would sing. He missed the singing too. That's what Fort was thinking about when a strange old man appeared in front of him like magic. There was Fort running out of Grover Street Church's double doors into the Carolina sun, sprinting through the parking lot to the grassy field to the other side, coughing the tears out of his eyes when man materialized out of nowhere. Fort almost managed to pull up and sidestep to the left. Crash! Suddenly, down was up and left was right. His knee throbbed painfully, and Fort tasted the delightful flavor of dirt. Crunchy dirt. He was going to have to brush his teeth for an hour to get the taste out. But as he lay on his back, staring at the sky, thinking of the amount of mouthwash he'd need, he heard the strangest thing. Words, yes, but strung together like he never heard before. The lightning, spilt the lightning. The fireflies, oh, they'll be angry. Is that, oh, biscuits, the chuckle snorts. Fort sat up to find a strange old man on his knees, digging through an overturned wagon with the saddest expression. And if it wasn't weird enough, the man's outfit was. He wore a long cape, black on the outside, purple on the inside, silver pants, mismatched flip-flops with the tag still attached, and to top it all off, a yellow derby hat with a white feather, the words Gary the Garrop stenciled on the brim. Fort gawked at him, but when the man finally looked up and their eyes met, the boy hurried to help. Sorry, Fort said. I didn't see you. I wasn't paying attention. He didn't want to mention the tears or the reason behind them. Why did there have to be so much sadness in the world? But before the corner's eyes could prickle all over again, Fort spotted a humongous glass jar tilted on its side and frowned. Happens to be the best of us at the worst of times, the old man said. Apology accepted. I'm sure you didn't. Oh, biscuits, the joy is gone! He reached down and grunted and heaved the jar into the air, steadying a giant crack that ran along the bottom. Actually, maybe humongous was an understatement. The jar came up to Fort's waist, and he was tall for his 11 years. And not only was it big, it was wide as well, so wide that Fort struggled to understand what could fit inside the wagon with the rest of the stuff in the first place. The glass was stained blue, so much so that it looked like it could hold blue raspberry Kool-Aid. The joy, it's gone! My last delivery gone! The man waved his arms in the air and what should have been impossible because he still held the jar in dismay. Fort went to dust himself off and then tried not to groan as his hands came away weight and stained. He was going to be in so much trouble. Bad enough he'd left the church in the middle of the service crying like a toddler. But now this, his one good suit. He was getting too big for it. His ankles were peeking out from under his cuffs. Was covered in the blue stuff. And what was it? I'm sorry. This is all my fault for apologies. I was 42 Jones. What are you doing? Uh-oh. Mama's voice was so sharp it could cut glass. As Fort turned to see her marching down the stairs, her black dress and black shawl fluttering in the summer breeze, one hand on her back and one hand on her round stomach, 1 week away from her due date, he braced for a tongue lashing sure to come. This wasn't the first time he'd gotten in trouble at church, and it wouldn't be the last. So when she stepped past him to help the strange man, Fort was confused. "Are you okay, Mr. G?" Mom asked. Did she know this guy? The strange old man, still struggling under the weight of the giant cracked jar, walled around to face her and tried to bow. "Of course, Madame Jones. It was but an accident." At least that was Fort thought he tried to say, but the man, Mr. G, had his mouth smushed against the bottom of the jar. So what it sounded like was, "Of course, Mugga Bones Lizard Butt Dragon Lint." It was so preposterous that Fort started to smile, which of course was the exact moment when Mama rolled around and laid it into him. 42 Jones, how many times have I told you to watch where you're going? You always get so excited you don't look but 2 feet in front of you. Did you apologize? Yes, Mama, Fort said, but for good measure turned to Mr. G and did it again. So again, "Sorry for knocking over all your stuff." Mr. G sighed and flapped a hand, nearly dropping the jar. Fort was starting to get concerned. "No worries, young man. Provided, of course." Mr. G waddled over and peered at the boy from beneath a pair of impressively bushy eyebrows, which looked like caterpillar doing the worm when they moved. "You help me refill the jar." "Wait," Fort started to shake his head. I don't think that's a wonderful idea," Mama said. "Fortitude, you go on and help Mr. G. I got to get back inside and help out. Go on now. Aunt Nita wouldn't have wanted you around outside anyway." Mama's tone left no room for argument, and if he was being honest, she was right. Aunt Netta always told him moping and a quarter could buy him a soda. The world is harsh. Find your joy, Fortitude, and it will be your nightlight when everything is dark. So before Mama's eyes could narrow, he dusted off and said, "Yes, Mama." She nodded, kissed his forehead, and went inside. It was hard on her, being not quite 9 months pregnant and losing one of her closest friends in Aunt Netta. Fort tried to help out, tried to do as much as he could for her, but getting in trouble definitely was not making things easier. "Well then, young Fortitude." Fort turned to find Mr. G studying him. Before the man handed him a butterfly net, 2 nickels, and a broken bubble wand. Fort held all the items, confused, but the old man had already twirled around, yes, twirled, with more agility than seemed possible, and pranced over, yes, pranced. Is this going to be a thing? To the wagon before Fort could ask any questions. Like what exactly they were meant to be collecting. Mr. G tucked the jar inside, then pulled out a bright blue nylon rope. He yanked the cord, skipped backward, then clapped his hands together and laughed. Fort stared in amazement. Where there were been nothing but painted yellow lines in the church parking lot, there now stood a large inflatable door. A door! Fort rubbed his eyes and blinked, then squinted. Mr. G was already lugging the wagon and whistling as he unzipped the air-filled entrance and pulled it open. Inside, revealing the other side of the parking lot, bright and sweltering in the midday sun. Fort saw cool darkness and silver stars dangling at ground level on the other side. "Come on, young man, come on. The final delivery of joy must be collected if balance is to be found." And the strange old man danced to the doorway, the wagon disappearing behind him. Fort stepped closer to the door. It shimmered as he approached, and was it growing bigger? He could smell something delicious come from inside and like apple turnovers. Fort looked back at the church. He couldn't go back in there. If Mama didn't catch him, someone else would, and he'd still get in trouble. It takes a village to ground a child, apparently. Well, Fort stole his thoughts. Mr. G stuck his head out of the door and frowned. Aren't you coming to help? Find your joy, Fortitude. Fort took a deep breath and nodded and stepped into wonder. Imagine walking through the stars, an interactive planetarium that you can reach out and touch worlds, galaxies, nebulas, clusters of suns that appear and disappear with every step. Imagine trailing your fingers through the tail of a comet and that burns through space right beside you. Fort has saw this and more. Mama would flip if she was here. Did she know about it? She always did love to look at the stars and point out meteors and just sit and hum under the light of the moon. As Fort turned in wonder, a planet the size of a beach ball with 2 marble-sized moons and floated toward him. What is this place, he whispered. The between, Mr. G came from somewhere ahead. The realm between worlds. A different realm and a shortcut. Thank you. If you want to read more, pick up Black Boy Joy. 17 stories celebrating Black boyhood to celebrate Black History Month. I'm Miss Jennifer, and thank you for joining me for another Book Bites.